I know a lot of you are switching from Photoshop to Affinity Photo, and you're wondering how to translate your skills, which is why I'm offering you 7 common design techniques, first in Photoshop, then in Affinity Photo, starting with a really great one, ending with a really great one, and in between, so great. Technique number 1 is to extract a classic image from its frame, and this qualifies. It's Paris Street Rainy Day by Gustave Caillebotte. It's from 1877, and therefore it is fair game. It's public domain. I will switch to the perspective crop tool here inside Photoshop. By the way, is where we're starting. And then you just want to go ahead and click at 4 points. Now, this is a destructive modification, so if you get it wrong, you're going to have to undo and try again. So you might as well try to get it right in the first place. Then you can also dial in exact dimensions up here in the options bar. 276 centimeters by 212. That is the size of the image as it hangs at the Art Institute of Chicago. And I'm setting the resolution to 72 pixels per inch. By the way, you could work with a higher resolution, but if you do, then you are going to spend more time. Obviously, this is already a super huge image, and I could now print it at actual size, albeit at a low resolution, but after all, it's a piece of impressionism. Now we're inside of Affinity Photo, and the best way to start is with a new document that is sized correctly, as you can see here. Same dimensions, 276 by 212 centimeters, 72 pixels per inch, not DPI, whatever. Create, and then I'll go up to the File menu and choose Place. And I will grab this image once again, go ahead and center it right there, and then I want to scale it to fill the entire canvas, because that way we are taking advantage of as much resolution in the first place as we have. You do not switch to the crop tool this time around. You go to the perspective tool. That is included along with the mesh warp tool. Notice that you're going to rasterize. That's fine. This is a destructive modification in both programs. You want single pane. Dual pane would give you like the corner of a building. That's not what we want. So single pane. You also want to set the mode to source. And then just go ahead and drag these corners where you want them to be. So from here on out, it's very much like it is inside Photoshop. Just set the corners inside of the frame. I'm not including the frame, of course. And then all I have to do is press the Enter key in order to apply that change. And once again, we have an image that is suitable for printing at actual size. Technique number 2 is to automatically enhance the brightness and contrast of an image. And by way of example, I have an actual piece of US currency from the year 1899. It's low contrast and it has a kind of green color cast. And so I might try to correct it here inside Photoshop by going up to the image menu and choosing one of these 3 auto commands. Now, I stress they are auto. They're going to affect different images differently. What you want to do is try a command. If you like it, great. If you don't, undo and try something different. In this case, I'll try auto contrast. It's the least of the 3. All it does is increase the contrast of the composite image. And so as a result, we get stronger shadows and highlights. So darks and lights. However, we still have that predominant green color cast. I don't like it, so I'll undo, and I'll return to the image menu and try auto tone, which increases the contrast on a channel by channel basis. That affects the color cast. We get rid of the green cast, but we introduce a new kind of color cast in the shadows. Do you see that they're kind of yellowish now? I'll undo that, and I'll return to the image menu and choose the final, most nuanced command of the bunch, which seeks to neutralize the gray values, and it does a brilliant job in this case. We have neutral paper and shadows, and we keep the strong colors, which in this case is pretty much limited to the 5. And if you're finding this helpful, there's plenty more like it coming in the future, so take a moment to subscribe. Compare that to Affinity Photo, where we have 4 icons, 4 auto icons up here in the horizontal toolbar. I'll start once again with auto contrast, which does the same thing. It increases the contrast on a composite basis. We get more contrast than we got in Photoshop, but we still have that green color cast. And so I'll undo that. Once again, that's what you want to do, and try something different. In this case, auto levels, which is what auto tone used to be called in Photoshop, and it does exactly the same thing. It increases the contrast on a channel by channel basis. It gets rid of the green color cast, but it introduces a new cast in the case of this image in the shadows, your results once again will vary. I'll undo that change and try one of the other two. Now, these are different. Auto colors, even though it has a very similar name, doesn't do anything like what it does in Photoshop. In fact, it increases the saturation of the colors, so we have more of a green color cast than ever. I don't want that, so I'll undo it. And then we have auto white balance. You can try this on your own images. On this image, it does almost nothing. And so what if I want that auto color effect that I like so much inside Photoshop? Well, I'll undo what I've done so far, and I'll start where this image is concerned. This is just one way to work. I'll apply auto levels, and that kind of gets rid of the color cast. It introduces a new one. And so here in the layers panel, I'll drop down to the black and white icon right here, click on it, and choose white balance. And then what you want to do is click on the picker button right there. And as opposed to clicking, you can click on a color. Just go ahead and press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag around a region to marquee it. And that will neutralize those pixels. Technique number 3 is how to convert one or more layers to a smart object or its equivalent. And so if you work in Photoshop, you know that a smart object is a special kind of protected layer that allows you, among other things, to apply as many transformations as you like without harming the original pixels. And so obviously I've made some changes. Here in the layers panel, I'll go ahead and select all of the layers, and I will click on the flyout menu icon and choose convert to smart object. That's all there is to it. Now, by way of demonstration, I'll go up to the edit menu and choose free transform. I'll change the width value, let's say to 33%, and I'll drag outside the boundary here to rotate the image and press the Enter key. Now, if I were working with the pixel-based layer, I'd be in trouble because I just rewrote every single pixel. However, because I'm working with a smart object, I can go over here to the properties panel and make further modifications, or I could click on this reset icon right here in order to reinstate the original pixels because they were never harmed in the first place. Hey, real quick, if you watch to the end of this video, you'll see a filter in Affinity Photo called Procedural Texture that is full on bonkers. It lets you take this and turn it into this and this and this and much, much more. For a fun introduction that might just restore your faith in computer-generated effects, join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/deeknow. Now in Affinity Photo, you have a couple of different options depending on your platform. So let's say you're working on a PC. Then you can select all the layers that you want to protect here inside the layers panel. Notice this layer right here is a pixel-based layer, which means that you can modify the pixels directly. If you want to protect them, then go up to the edit menu and choose copy. And then return to the edit menu and choose paste special. Again, this is just on the PC. This command doesn't even exist on the Mac. You want device independent bitmap or V5, doesn't matter, it's a Windows thing. Then click OK. And if the image appears at the wrong location, you can just drag it into alignment like so. And notice that I'm getting a snap because I have snapping turned on, and I end up with an image layer. Notice that, which is a protected kind of layer inside Affinity Photo. Here's another way to work that works on the Mac and the PC, and it's just kooky, I swear. You go to the file menu and you choose the place command, and then you find the image you're working on. No kidding. Here it is. See, enhanced banknote, same image, and you click open. And then you just go ahead and place it, and it comes in this time as an embedded document. So it's not linked, which would be weird to link to a file you're working on, right? Instead, it's embedded. Either way, you can go up to the horizontal toolbar here and change the scale value to anything you want. I'll change it to 33%, let's say, and I'll press Command H on the Mac. That's Control H on the PC. In order to hide the other layers so we can better see what we're doing. And I'll rotate this guy. And now I could do 50 other things and come back next week to this same layer. And all I have to do is return to the toolbar right here and click original size. and that'll scale the image. Then here in the transform panel, make sure the center icon is selected, change the rotate value to 0 degrees, and everything is good as new. All right, technique number 4 is how to change a single color. So what I want to do is change this pink t-shirt to orange, which is great for fashion shots, by the way. Notice nothing else is affected inside this image. So here I am inside Photoshop. I'll go to the bottom of the layers panel, click on that black and white circle right there, and choose hue saturation. And then you want to grab this tool right here, which despite its long name is known as the targeted adjustment tool. And then I'll just drag inside this woman's t-shirt. If I drag to the right, I'm going to increase the saturation values. You can see that I'm doing quite a number on these women's faces. I don't want that, and so I could reduce the saturation. Don't really want to go that far, and not that interested in the saturation value. I want to change the hue value right there, and so I'll press the control key or the command key on the Mac and drag like so, and I'll go ahead and take that value. I'm watching the hue value, by the way, up to plus 60, and we end up with that effect. So we're just changing the color of that pink t-shirt and nothing more. Meanwhile, inside Affinity Photo, it's pretty similar. Here in the layers panel, you drop down to the black-white circle once again. Don't choose recolor. That's going to colorize the image entirely. You don't want that. You want HSL, but this is a little weird. Initially, you want this picker button to work. Initially, it doesn't. And so you have to select one of these little colored circles, anything but the rainbow. And so I'll go ahead and click on cyan right there, and then click on picker, very important, and then click on a t-shirt. Initially, nothing's going to happen. You don't drag around with this one. Instead, you want to change the hue value. Notice that, the hue shift value right here, and I'm going to take it down to -60 is what I'm looking for. And then I'll also take down the saturation shift value. Now I want you to notice that this time I'm affecting a lot more colors inside the image. Notice the women's lips are all affected, and this woman over here on the left hand side, her red t-shirt has gone orange. So this is before and this is after. I'm just turning the layer on and off. And so what you want to do is play around with this range right here that's represented on a circle. Totally awesome. I'm just going to collapse the range a little bit. So it used to be like this. Now I'm taking it up and over a little bit, just rotating it around in a counterclockwise direction, and I end up making that pink shirt orange. Technique number 5 is to convert live editable text to a vector-based shape layer, which affords you different opportunities. Now, I don't want to harm the original text, want to be able to edit it later, so I'll press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac to jump it, so I can come back to it later, turn off the original, and then I think the easiest way to work here inside Photoshop, in case that's not clear, is to go up to the type menu and choose Convert to Shape. Then what you can do is assign a stroke. And so I'll switch to the black arrow tool, which is a path selection tool in this program, and I'll click on, actually any of the letters is going to be just fine, and I'll change the stroke right here to white like so, and then I will take the line weight up to 8. Like so, and that's 8 pixels, by the way, and it gives us nice, crisp, miter joints, which is not something you normally get with text inside Photoshop. Now I want to scale the S, so I'll press Control-T, Command-T on the Mac for free transform, and I'll just scale it up here in the options bar to 130%, like so. And then I'll just move each one of these U's outward by selecting one and pressing Shift left arrow in this case 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then I'll do the same thing with this, except right arrow, shift right arrow 1, 2, 3, 4 times. All right, now let's do the same thing inside Affinity Photo. So again, I've got an editable type layer that I don't want to harm, so I'll press Control-J, Command-J on the Mac to jump it, turn off the original, and then what you do in this case is you switch to the Move tool, which looks like a black arrow as well, but it serves a different purpose. Anyway, its keyboard shortcut is V, and then I will go ahead and right-click inside the text and choose Convert to Curves, or you can press that keyboard shortcut right there. And now I want to assign a stroke, so I'll click on stroke, make it white, click right there, and I need to make sure I'm not working with points, so I'll enter 8px for pixels in order to get the same effect I was getting in Photoshop. Now I'll click a couple of times on the S right there, and I want to make it bigger, so I'll switch to the transform panel, and it's not really giving me the right feedback, so I'll press the V key to switch back to the black arrow tool. It's a little confusing. Notice the center point is selected right there. What I'd like to do is change this to 130%. Actually, I believe I can. I can just enter 130% if I can type correctly, like so, and press the enter key, and that does indeed work. And now I'll click on the U and press shift left arrow 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then click on the other U and press shift right arrow 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and I get the exact same effect we saw inside Photoshop. Technique number 6 is how to most conveniently access the Polygonal Lasso tool. And so what I want to do is select this polygonal pool right here. And so in Photoshop, you can switch to the Polygonal Lasso, this guy right here, if you want to, but I prefer just to work with the standard lasso tool. And that way you can go back and forth. And so what you do for a polygon is you press and hold the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, and as long as you keep that key down, you can click to create straight sides like so. And I'll go ahead and select this guy, and then as soon as you release the Alt or Option key, you complete the selection. Now obviously I have a problem with that straight edge there at the top, and so I'll switch to the rectangular marquee tool, and then all you have to do is press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag to subtract from that existing selection. And now I'll drop down to the black and white circle at the bottom of the layers panel and choose brightness contrast, and I will crank up the brightness value and take down the contrast value so that we can better see the serpent inside the pool. And just to give you a sense of what we've done, this is before and this is after. Meanwhile, here inside Affinity Photo, you can switch to the Freehand selection tool, same as the lasso tool, and then up here in the toolbar you can see we have a bunch of modes including polygonal and magnetic. You can switch to one of those if you want to. However, here's a trick. You can press and hold not Alt or Option, but rather the Shift key and click. And as long as you keep that key down, you can create polygonal edges, straight-sided edges like so. And then as soon as you release, oops, got an auto scroll. As soon as you release the Shift key, then you complete the selection outline. And now, once again, I need to carve away the top edge there using the standard rectangular marquee tool, and that's the same thing. You press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and drag, and notice the marching ants change on the fly. I love that. Now I'm gonna click on the black-white circle here at the bottom of the layers panel, choose brightness contrast, so same stuff. However, this command does behave differently. I'll crank up the brightness value all the way, take the contrast value all the way down, press Ctrl D or Command D on the Mac to deselect the image. We have a little bit of a bright highlight there, so I might have to adjust the mask, but otherwise you can see that we are doing a fine job of bringing out that serpent. And now at technique number 7, we have what most of us first encountered as the clouds filter in Photoshop. You will see it's much better rendered in Affinity Photo, much more useful. And so I'll just go ahead here in Photoshop and convert this background to an independent layer. Then I'll right click and choose Convert to Smart Object, and that way I can apply clouds right here as a dynamic smart filter. And so I'll just go ahead and choose it. Notice you get this clouds pattern. Nothing you can do about it. You can double click on clouds if you want to in order to experience something different. And then I'll double click on this blend slider right there, that icon. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do with clouds. Look it up. You'll see that it's the starting point for all kinds of different digital effects out there. But I'm just going to change the blend mode to overlay in order to produce this kind of mottled lighting. settings. So this is before and this is after. Meanwhile, here inside Affinity Photo, you can go up to the filters menu and then choose noise, followed by this guy right here. There it is, Perlin noise, named for Ken Perlin, who worked on the movie Tron, and in 1985 he was disgusted by how fakey computer graphics look. Sound familiar? And so he came up with this thing and won an Academy Award for the technology. Believe it or not, it is what Clouds is based on. However, don't apply Perlin noise here, because that will apply a static effect. You'll permanently destroy the pixels. You don't want that. So go ahead and click on the hourglass icon down here at the bottom of the layers panel and choose procedural texture. Believe it or not. And this brings up a world, I want to say a world of hurt. There's a ton of stuff you can do with this filter. It is mind-numbing in a lot of ways, but this is one of the simpler things. Notice in the noise section we have simple Perlin noise and we have thin clouds, so you can experiment with those. So I'm going to go with the most complicated one. That is the one that gives you the most control, Perlin noise. And notice we have a cell count. If I increase that value, then we have tighter spacing where the noise is concerned, or I could loosen it with a lower value. Contrast and brightness, they're going to do what you think. They do clip, however, so that's something to be aware of. Persistence, if you increase the value, is going to give you harsher noise. If you decrease the value, you're going to soften things up and apply a little bit of Gaussian blur. And then octaves theoretically increases the complexity. You can play with that. I'm going to close this dialog box. Notice that we now have a dynamic live filter right here applied to the background. Didn't even have to convert it to a smart object. And so now I can just change the blend mode to overlay to produce a very similar effect to what we saw inside Photoshop, but we have that much better control. So 7 techniques. I'm sure you can think of a few more, if not a few dozen, in which case comment below. And then subscribe and turn on notifications. And for a fun introduction to Affinity's procedural texture filter, join me at patreon.com/DeekNow. And then go to Deek.com and sign up for my absolutely free newsletter. I'm Deke McClellan. This is Deek Now.